The American Journey: Power, Promise, and Paradox. The story begins not with colonists or revolutionaries, but with hundreds of indigenous nations who had shaped this land for millennia. From the mound-building Mississippians to the sophisticated Iroquois Confederacy, these were societies with complex governments, trade networks, and cultural traditions that would all face unimaginable challenges in the centuries to come. When European ships first appeared on the horizon, it marked the beginning of a collision that would forever transform the continent. The Spanish established outposts in Florida, the French explored the Mississippi, and the English planted colonies along the Atlantic coast, each bringing different visions for this new world. The Jamestown settlement of 1607 nearly failed before it began, with English gentlemen unprepared for the harsh realities of frontier life. It was the introduction of tobacco as a cash crop, cultivated by indentured servants and later enslaved Africans, that secured Virginia's survival while establishing patterns that would haunt American history. Further north, the Pilgrims arrived in 1620 seeking religious freedom, yet showed little tolerance for those who disagreed with their strict doctrines. Their legendary first Thanksgiving with the Wampanoag people represented a fleeting moment of cooperation in what would become a long, painful history of displacement and broken treaties. The 18th century saw the colonies grow increasingly restive under British rule. Taxes imposed without representation, coupled with growing Enlightenment ideals about natural rights, created a revolutionary ferment. The Boston Massacre in 1770 and the Boston Tea Party 3 years later demonstrated how protests could escalate toward rebellion. On July 4, 1776, the Continental Congress approved the Declaration of Independence, a document both revolutionary and contradictory, proclaiming all men equal while its author owned slaves. The war that followed seemed impossible. Untrained colonial militias against the world's most powerful military. But through Washington's leadership, French assistance, and sheer determination, victory was won at Yorktown in 1781. The peace treaty left the new United States with vast western lands and no clear plan for their governance. The Articles of Confederation proved too weak, leading to the Constitutional Convention of 1787. Here, delegates crafted a remarkable yet imperfect framework, establishing a republic with checks and balances while compromising on slavery to preserve the Union. The early 19th century saw the young nation expand rapidly through purchases like Louisiana and acquisitions from wars with native nations. The Erie Canal connected east and west, while cotton gin technology made slavery more profitable than ever in the South, even as northern states abolished the practice. The 1820s brought the era of good feelings, though tensions simmered beneath the surface. Andrew Jackson's presidency embodied both democratic expansion and cruel policies like the Trail of Tears. Meanwhile, a growing abolition movement challenged the nation's conscience, with figures like Frederick Douglass giving voice to those enslaved. By the 1850s, westward expansion had become a flashpoint. Would new states be slave or free? The Dred Scott decision inflamed tensions, John Brown's raid terrified Southerners, and Lincoln's election in 1860 triggered secession. The Civil War that followed would claim more American lives than any conflict before or since. Post-war Reconstruction offered brief hope for racial equality, but the Compromise of 1877 ended federal protection for freedmen. As Jim Crow laws spread across the South, industry boomed in the North, railroads, steel mills, and oil refineries transforming the landscape while labor unions fought for workers' rights. The turn of the century saw America emerge as a global power through the Spanish-American War and acquisition of overseas territories. Progressive-era reforms tackled corruption and improved working conditions, though women still couldn't vote nationwide and racial segregation remained entrenched. The 1920s roared with economic prosperity and cultural change until the stock market crash of 1929 ushered in the Great Depression. FDR's New Deal programs rebuilt infrastructure and restored hope, while abroad, the rise of fascism set the stage for another world war. Post-war America stood as the world's dominant economic and military power, yet faced new challenges. The Red Scare at home, proxy wars abroad, and a civil rights movement demanding the nation live up to its founding ideals. The Vietnam War divided the country, while the 1960s saw landmark legislation on voting rights and immigration. The late 20th century brought technological revolutions and globalized trade, along with new debates over America's role in the world. The 9/11 attacks reshaped national security priorities, while the 2008 financial crisis exposed deep economic inequalities that still resonate today. From 13 colonies to 50 states, from rural outpost to global leader, America's journey has been marked by extraordinary achievements and painful contradictions. Its greatest strength may lie not in any myth of perfection, but in its enduring capacity for self-correction and renewal. The experiment continues.